where visionaries, entrepreneurs, and artists dream, transform, and create. Rae TV. You are listening to Miracle Moment, and I am your host, Rae Irelan. This is where trailblazing, truth-telling, provocative, and successful entrepreneurs and creatives from around the globe share their number one miracle moment that changed everything, pointing them in the direction of igniting epic soul alignment in their life and business. These renegade souls will show you the behind-the-scenes, real-life magic on how to create a world-class lifestyle of true success. I am so glad you're tuning in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next episode, and we are here with Emily Darling from Emily Darling Coaching, and so excited to be here with this sister who has been walking the path of coaching, personal transformation with me. We met in a mastermind about a little over a year ago and have just stayed in touch and really been connected. And I received so much from her perspectives that she holds. And I love just, walking this path with other incredible women who are just so devoted to this journey of transformation. So thank you for being here. She's an incredible coach, also an author and badass lover, and so much more that we're going to unravel here. So Emily, thanks for being here with us on Miracle Moment.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's always an honor and a privilege to connect with women who are, like you said, devoted, man. One of my favorite words. It really is a devotion to be devoted to the work, devoted to being of service, devoted to the calling. And so it's such a pleasure to talk with you.
Yes. And speaking of pleasure, we're going to be diving into pleasure and desires today. But before we go there, can you share a little bit more about what you're doing right now? And also, let's start with that. What
Sure.
are you doing? What are you up to right now? What's sparking your desire in life, business?
It's been such an expansive, disruptive time during the pandemic. And I've noticed this not only with my clients, but with myself, a deepening and a clarification of what my purpose is. It's so interesting noticing how everyone's having trouble. A lot of businesses are having trouble hiring people because the workers and employees are starting to redefine for themselves what work is and what enjoyable work is. So everyone's having this renaissance of the soul and redefining what's important. And so for me and my business, it's really evolved within the last year and a half with the pandemic. I was really focused when I first started on continuing to share the medicine that I had received the last couple of years, which was around feminine energy and relationships specifically. But as time has gone on, it's started to really expand and bleed into my relationship with wealth, my clients' relationship with wealth, with power, with influence. And all of that is really rooted in desire, right? So, so where I am now is not only doing personal mastery and emotional intelligence coaching, but really expanding that into having women and men, actually, I have a male client, holding really influential and impactful businesses in the world, and doing it in a way that is not only in service to other people, but actually deeply nourishing and in service to themselves and their business boundaries. We don't really cover too much of, right? It's like having your business work for you. We're always starting, traditional coaching is like, what's your target audience? Not like, who are you and what do you want? What's your desire? So that's been the expansion that's happened personally within the pandemic, is just getting more rooted and having things feel good and be more honest.
I love that. I love the word rooted. It just I think it's something that we're all craving. And I think about like our connection to the land and earth, but also when we are rooted within ourselves, we're just deepening that connection to self and like what you're sharing. Um, and so um, let's dive into this like quest around desire and pleasure. And I'm curious if you can maybe actually bring us back into a story of a time that you had what you would say is a miracle moment.
Right, right. Yeah, desire and pleasure. It's interesting. We think they're so synonymous. You know, desire has to
Mhm.
feel good, but that was not my initiation into desire at all. You know, for me, desire is this. It's this. It almost feels like you're like a soul, your soul is dangling a carrot in front of you on this idea of what you
Mhm.
think you want, and it can lead
Mhm.
to an initiation for something where you're like, wow, I really didn't opt into this, but I thought I was going to get something at the end of this. I was looking forward to this outcome, this trophy, this dude, this revenue, all of this. And that's so not what it is. It has turned out for me to be a deeper initiation into womanhood. So when a
Mm.
couple of years ago, I've been living in Manhattan for a couple of years, and you know, I'm an actor, I'm a producer, and so I was very much, you know, it was in and out of auditions. I was hanging around the theater district. I was running a business in that area. I was actually in the WeWork headquarters tower is where I was co-working. So I was social and I was seeing shows and I was living the life. And I really felt like I needed to take a break from the city. And everything in my mind mentally was like, well, what are you talking about? We just started having momentum. You know, my producing partner and I, some of our shows were getting picked up and there were things happening. And so it was the most inconvenient time for a desire to pop up. You know, this little calling of like, we actually need to leave and put everything on pause. So I said, okay, well, I'm not too sure where I want to go. I was thinking about LA. I was thinking about going overseas for a bit. But I put my things in storage and I went to visit my family down south. And when I was there, I was just lounging about one morning and I heard this voice, a little intuitive voice that said, you know, I wonder how David is. And David is my first love back when I was 16 years old. It had been 11 years since we had connected. I had broken up with him because I was moving to New York and gonna, you know, do the Big Apple. And he was kind of a country boy and wanted to stay home. And I was like, yeah, you know, you're not ambitious enough, blah, 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 blah. All my ideas, you know, young and dumb of like what I needed in the world to launch into the world. But I'm glad I
Mhm.
did it. And so it was interesting to me to hear this voice because he was not anywhere on my radar. But I decided to find him on Facebook. It took me a few minutes and I sent him a message and it was just a little emoji that said hi. I put my phone down. I didn't think anything of it. I think I noticed that his profile picture, a couple pictures back, he was in a relationship. So, you know, I totally wrote it off. But then he wrote me back right away and said, you know, I was literally just thinking about you. I was looking at our prom photo from when we were in high school. I was like, what, our prom photo? What do you, oh, wow, that's interesting. And he said, yeah, I'm going to be down in the South because we both grew up there next week for my friend's wedding. So I was like, oh, well, I said, oh, who are you going with? You know, he said, oh, you know, I'm single. I'm not going with anyone. But I'm going to be in the wedding. And then afterwards, I'm going to be free. So of course, I'm like, okay, you know, this little desire voice again chimed in
Mhm.
and was like, oh, I would love to like see him. I would love to go on a date. And it just felt like the reason I'm stumbling is it felt like a little voice of betrayal, you know, like, what do you mean you want to go out with this guy? Like, we're here on a pit stop. We're still going back to Manhattan. why are you now suddenly going on all these dates? But there it goes. And so I said, well, are you going to take me out? So he said, yeah, absolutely. I would love to. There you go. You know, a couple of days later, he pulls up to the driveway, same driveway that he did when we were 16 years old. And it was so deja vu.
Wow.
And I would have never, ever planned for it to be this renewal, this spark. And, you know, it was like no time had passed. And I totally realized he was the one. And even though it had been so long, we just sort of fell right back into how close we were, and our families knew each other. And so it was this effortless manifestation of my soulmate, who I had known all along. And I'd actually had a feeling when I had interviewed my soul, one of the journaling exercises I do, that like my person was already in my like sphere of influence. I wasn't sure who it was. So it was just interesting. And he said, well, do you want to come to Denver to visit? And you know, I'm like, well, all my stuff is packed and my stuff is in storage in Manhattan. And again, you know, the voice of desire was like, let's go to Denver all summer. I'm like, well, bitch, what are you talking about? Like, we're here for a month. We're supposed to go to LA. We're supposed to go to Europe. We have family members to see. Like, now you're literally going to be, quote unquote, following a man.
No, we can't do that.
It's so inconvenient. It's so like, you know, it's not modern, all these things. And I actually brought it to my coach, and she was like, huh, it sounds like you really want to go to Denver. Like, she just stayed right on the spot of like, it actually feels like this is what you want. As much as you're thrashing, this is what you really desire. So I went to Denver for the summer, and I have never left. It has been 2 years. It has been 2.5 years. My stuff is still in storage in Manhattan. We're going to go get it next month, finally. And we got engaged 4th of July, and he's the love of my life. And there you go.
Oh.
In a million years, chosen this for myself if I had it my way. So thankfully, desire had her way. And that was my miracle moment, this whole new journey that I've been on.
Oh, when desire has it her way. Oh, I love that line.
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been really a great ride.
Wow. It really is a miracle moment, and like where you're at now, and just that deep connection. You're like, it's the man of my dreams. Like, wow, you know, it's so impactful. When do you feel like you realize that it was a miracle that you followed that? Because it sounds like you were pretty skeptical for a while before.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I realized it was a moment that I had stepped into something when it was like a series of things. It was very synchronistic, very synchronistic, you know, me wanting to come to visit him in Denver, and then him inviting me, and then me thinking, well, maybe I should stay a little bit longer. And then him saying, do you want to stay the summer? And then when I got here, you know, he had just got a new house and like a whole new mattress, you know, because I was like, I don't want any juju, you know, bad juju.
Yes.
You know, so he had like all new stuff, and like there was a little parking spot where I could be. Like, it was like I just came right in, and everything seemed to have been created. There was a space created for me here that I walked right into. And then, you know, little things that he would say. But I would say if there was a distinct moment, it was probably my first weekend here, when I was first in Colorado State, and he was driving me around and showing me how beautiful it is here. And I just had a moment, you know, in the mountains of being like, wow, this is crazy to have gone from a concrete jungle, you know, with skyscrapers, to now it really felt like a journey from the masculine to the feminine, you know, being in nature versus, you know, being in the skyscraper and with all the lights and the LEDs and all that. And so I just thought, oh, wow, the landscape is a great story, tells the story of this ride that my desire has taken me on. And I'm going to trust that. I'm going to trust that there's something here for me, because as much as I may not want to admit it, I really, really needed this.
Oh, I'm letting that land. I think for everyone that's listening, there's something that I say to myself pretty often, which is like, what do I need and what do I want right now? And are they aligned or are they not aligned? Because there's not a right or wrong if they are aligned or not, but it's really important to have those voices be present and listen to them and hear them, because sometimes what you do really need might not be the initial thing of what you want. I love that point that you shared also about the environment. And anyone that's listening now, I would ask you to take a moment to think about, what is your environment telling you right now? What is that story that it's sharing for you? Where did you come from and where are you now? And maybe what is your dream or desire of what environment you could be leaning into for that next activation? So I love that play with using external things like environments and people to actually kind of help us navigate and understand where we are along our own path.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of my teachers says the greatest sign that a desire is real is the fulfillment of that desire. It seems simple.
Wow.
It seems so simple. Like, oh, if you have it, you want it. Right? Because that can be so icky. It's like, oh, but there might be some things in my environment I don't want. Well, if anybody's listening and they're like, my apartment's too small, or I actually don't like it here, and blah, 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 blah. How could that actually be a sign of desire? I am so offended by this desire. This is not what I want. There's a lot of power in taking responsibility and ownership of like, ooh, let me look at my environment, because it does tell the story of what your real desire is, and then from there, you can actually decide consciously what you want and what you want to create moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And do you want to touch on the piece around like the differences between desire and pleasure?
Yeah, desire and pleasure. Yeah, there's a belief, and I totally understand where it comes from, especially when women especially have abbreviated their desire so much that it sucks so much of the pleasure out of it that we've lost touch with our pleasure. And your pleasure, what brings you that happiness and satisfaction, is such an important signpost for what you really want. And I honor and I understand and I acknowledge the importance of reclaiming feminine pleasure, because it's something that is so diminished and has been so diminished for so long. And there's like this grown woman version of desire, right? That is beyond the feel good, looks good, is shiny, is something that gets me off kind of flavor of desire. And that is, this version of desire that's like this holy calling that your soul has sent you on, that is really about initiation and not about pleasure. Desire brings you to your knees. It's not always about you getting what you want and you having the thing. It's an initiation. It's a rite of passage into a deeper sense of maturity and ownership and authority, and self-regulating, and having actual mastery. So as far as identifying the difference in the voice, it's tricky because you almost don't recognize it until after the fact, because so many times you can talk yourself out of it. And thank God I had like women around me and a coach who was willing to sort of like challenge me on all of my very convincing reasons about why this little voice was inappropriate, inconvenient, misunderstanding, and all of the things that I had this idea about. And I really believe that, like, no, the voice told me to take a break, and now the voice is telling me move to a city that it was not on the map for me, to follow a relationship that has not been progressing. It just came out of nowhere. And so what I would say to anyone listening, as far as being able to distinguish between the truth and, I guess, more of like a frivolous desire, is, I wish we could do this without pussy. Like, I wish there was a way to just bypass the body and just like, okay, here's your 1, 2, 3, put it on the card, you're good. But this really is like a pussy portal.
It is.
You have to be in your body to hear it, and you have to be willing to make mistakes, and you have to be willing to look foolish and break all of the rules that your mind has. So this really comes down to what your moral code is, and how your moral code could actually be completely opposite of what the true desire is. My moral code was like, we have a plan, we stick to it, right? We do things for us, not for a man. Well, desire had a completely different moral code than that. So, but my pussy, and having a strong relationship with that voice, and being in my body, and having, awesome women to point to the thing, is what allowed me to actually be more willing to kind of surrender and play it out and see if maybe potentially I might be wrong and there might be something here for me. So I think it's about, are you willing to be undone? Are you willing to have reality prove your ideas wrong, and to have who you think you are be complete? Turns out you're so not like that. Turns out I so am willing to go and follow true love and do what I feel is being called of me in the moment. So what I would share to people is like, how willing are you to surrender to the unknown? And then that will point you towards maybe some blind spots where your real, true, deep, dark, inappropriate, inconvenient desires might live.
Absolutely. And like in that cave, in that void, in that darkness might also be the place where you find your miracle moment. I know that's been the relationship that even started this whole podcast, was me really recognizing that, wow, the moments that were the most impactful in my life, that have been more committed or more connected to desire, not pleasure, but that desire of, I love how you said it, it just brings you to your knees. A lot of those times were times where I was just in full surrender, and sometimes in rock bottom full surrender. And I just love that challenge, and that invitation to anyone that's listening to just like question, how willing am I to go there? Because that really is where you could connect so deeply to your deepest desires that can actually create your deepest pleasures. Like I hear you, and when you're talking about your story and getting engaged and like the home and being in the mountains, like there's so much pleasure in it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it was a portal of mystery that got me here, and mystery, of course, is the feminine, just as desire is. And so it's like, oh, are you willing to just follow it and not know how it's going to turn out, and know that you're capable within yourself to land on your feet no matter where you are, that you have like a wide enough pussy, right, to hold however it shows up, that you're not going to be victimized by it, but you're going to be able to eat it, you're going to be able to integrate it, and ultimately your willingness to get off on however it looks is what allows that willingness to turn out to be super pleasurable in the end.
Absolutely. And I even hear with that, it's like, have your feet grounded, have them rooted. And as you were saying that, I was like feeling more of the inner masculine presence, and really feeling like the strength of like my spine, the power, that focus. And so really it's like a conversation of like that full integrated space of like, I've got myself, and because I've got myself so strongly, I'm going to step so boldly into the mystery of the unknown.
Oh yeah, being able to hold yourself is the key to all of this. And it really is. I love the word you use, spine, because you have to grow. We've talked about this before, right? Like growing a really beautiful spine so you can have your heart open, because you need both, and so that groundedness, or, to use a word you used earlier about the rootedness in who you are, is what allows you to open to what you want. Like yeah.
Totally. And I'm curious how does it show up for you in terms of this quest around following desire and pleasure? How does that show up for you within your business and what you're creating, your masterpieces? You're an author, like you're not just a coach, but in all the aspects of business for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's been another initiation into business, because I've worked from home since about 2015 or so, being in New York. And one of the things that coaching specifically has shown me about myself is how to continuously surrender to whatever wants to show up and however the medicine wants to work me first. So with business, I had come from e-commerce and different industries where it really was data driven. It really is about having a good plan in place, executing on that plan, even that word, like executing, right? It's like masculine.
Yes.
Executing on the plan. And having like a very systematized approach to the marketplace. But with coaching, it's all about relationships, right? And so I had manifested a relationship and then felt this calling. And I even told my coach at the time, I was like, I'm never going to be a coach. I mean, again, here goes my ideas of who I was. I was like, I'm not fucking coaching. Like, I'm an artist. I'm a business person. Coaching and consulting, it just seems very this is kind of the misogynistic, right? Of like, it seems very messy to me, holding men, like that's just so messy. I don't know if I want to be a coach. And so I honestly don't even know how I stumbled into coaching. Like when I think back on it, I'm like, what was the miracle moment for coaching? What I think it was is I was overflowing with such gratitude for the women in my lineage who poured such spiritual wealth into me that I was like, I have to pay it forward. It's actually really selfish to not pour and be of service to other people, because so many women have invested in me. So I started coaching a little bit more, so just publishing and writing and putting together a book. I was having a lot of girlfriends say, like, what do I look for? Like, what are the actual tactical, what do I look for on a date? What do I look for when we're at, boyfriend phase, lover phase, engagement phase, all of that. And so I was like, oh, I'll put together a little something and start publishing and writing about that. And had no, again, I was already doing other things. And so I was like, I don't know about this coaching business. I don't know what it's going to be. But then I started getting, my bat signal started actually bringing people in. And so I thought, oh, wow, this is interesting. People are in my DMs. I'm getting messages. There's engagement happening. I would have never planned this because, again, I'm not a coach. I was telling myself.
Yeah.
But I loved people and I loved relationships, and I really, most of all, I'm a sucker for connection. And so the connections that were happening around people's deep, intimate, I mean, it's interesting. You look at women overseas who survived war zones and all this stuff. I was reading a great article where it was talking about in these refugee camps, the women sit around and talk about dating and who they liked on their way. And it's like, oh, wow, even through tremendous hardships, this thread of connection and love and intimacy is present in all of us. And so I realized how much I loved that, and I wanted to be in service to intimacy. And that started the whole business thing and, clients. And interestingly enough, because I had a business background, I was getting a lot of inquiries around business and personal power and relationships. So I had this idea of like, okay, once I admitted I was a coach, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a love coach. The universe had completely different, it was like, oh no, we're going to bring you like people who are asking about everything, and it's going to fuck with you because you think that you're a niche and that you need to be niche, when really we just want you to be of service and to expand and to be willing to hold people on whatever phase, on whatever ride they're going on. So I had to really surrender to that. And it's been still a journey of being like, I'm not a niche, I'm in service. Here's what I do. Here's the outcomes that people have had in my containers, and trusting and having faith that I would be understood, because that was a big limiting belief that I had of, people won't understand me. I'm an actor. I'm a little bit of a sorceress. I'm a magician. I'm a storyteller. I'm talking about love, and then I'm talking about marketing, and then I'm talking about, intimacy. And so is this actually, are people gonna clearly hear my bat signal? But I had to trust, again, like I did with manifesting my soulmate, that like that voice would lead me. And if I just told the truth, I had to believe that telling the truth was enough.
I love it so much. Just hearing your story, hearing your dedication. And I think that desire of wanting to be understood, I can see how it actually relates to the whole conversation of desire and pleasure, because it's like you, in your story, it's like you didn't understand. It was stepping into the void, and you didn't understand, am I really desiring this? Do I really want to go to Colorado? Am I actually going to do it? And actually, as you started to understand yourself more, what I'm hearing is you got to then just show up as that, and people started to understand you even more, connecting like bridges of the desire and pleasure of you wanting to be of service and feeling so good while in that role. And then clients really coming in and being that other side of the bridge to allow you to have that in your life, and also amplifying it in theirs.
Yeah, it really is, especially with the feminine, mystery, the unknown, desire. You really don't get to see 3 steps ahead. Like it's just out. And so it's more so than trusting your sight. It's like trusting that like no matter what happens, I trust I have enough skills to handle what happens. And if I don't, then I will hone that along the way. It's like, okay, I'm in a relationship now, and I'm just going to trust that I know enough about boundaries and enough about expressing myself and asking for things and listening, being a good listener. How much enough do you have to be to trust that you can just take at least that one step? There's this thing that's really been coming up lately about being aligned, right? Everyone's always saying about being aligned, and going back, to being aligned with desire, being aligned to what you want. The trick question that's been coming up for me, and I recognize that it was a trick question, is like, how aligned enough do you have to be? And it's like, oh, wow, that is a trick question, because we think, oh, I have to be really aligned, or I have to be perfectly aligned, or I have to know. Actually, especially if you have a feminine operating system, aligned is not, about feeling good. It's not about it's actually not about knowing anything.
Yes.
You don't have to know anything beyond step one to be aligned. You also don't need to feel good to be aligned, right? It's like, oh, the feminine is super moody and, turbulent and chaotic. And so it's like, oh, you can be super abundant and super open and not be in a good mood, not know what you're doing, not know the next step. And you're still on the path. And
you can still be in desire and still be in pleasure, even in those moments.
And still make a shit ton of money and still make the love of your life and still find your dreams coming true, all the while to get there, you were, confused, distracted, moody, had several breakups, didn't know what offer you wanted, had a lot of failures, it can be super messy and you can manifest exactly what you want. So being aligned enough or knowing enough, I think it's irrelevant when it's a feminine system. You don't actually need to know anything.
Totally.
It's actually required that you know a lot less than you think you should.
Yeah. Release, let go. It's not helping. Oh, wow. Well, what an amazing conversation this has been. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And what I'm really taking away from this is being so okay with the messiness of my desires and pleasures and knowing, and maybe this is the only knowing that I can have is there's a miracle in that. There's a miracle in it somewhere, somehow. And I may find it soon. I may find it later. I may never find it, but what if I just surrender to that? Such beauty in the imperfection. So
yes. And accepting, because with mystery, it's like, oh, can we accept that it's all a process of discovery, right? Rather than, because fear could also be excitement. So it's like, oh, I wonder how this works. I wonder what's on the other side of this. I wonder who I'll meet, how much I'll make, what offer will work, what people that I'll meet. Oh, I wonder how this will turn out. So actually embracing the surprise element of the mystery rather than, oh, I have to figure it out, or I'm scared, or I need to know more. I should research more. I should Google more. I should, think about this more. No, just go on the ride and say oh, how fun this could be to discover what miracle could be on the other side of this. This could be really fun.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Emily, for joining us. Thank you, everyone that tuned in to listen to this episode. Oh, just leaving with so much juiciness and yumminess and desire and pleasure and mystery. Oh, it's so good. So definitely check out Emily online. We'll have her information connected to all the information for this episode. Is there any specific way that you'd like people to stay in touch with you or find you?
Yeah, on my business page is just Emily Darling. You can find me there and send me a message. Let me know your big takeaways from today's episode. Say hello.
Yeah, tell us. We're curious. So thanks, Emily. I will see you soon, love.
Thank you. Blessings.
Adios.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for checking out this video. Subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't yet so you can stay up to date for new episodes coming out soon. And remember to witness and acknowledge the miracles and magic in every moment. This is Rae Irelan, and I'll see you soon.